Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Max Effort. This is the series on my channel where I interview runners in a podcast form here on YouTube. Today, I have a very special guest. He's an Iowa City legend, Erik Sowinski, three-time national champion. He was the 2016 World Indoor Bronze Medalist in the 600 meter. He ran at the University of Iowa, and over the last 10 years, he has competed in 16 U.S. championship finals. He is the former American record holder in the 600 meter, and despite being 32 years old, he is still making a big impact on U.S. middle distance running. But lately, he's also moved towards pacing, and he has become a world-class pacer in the Diamond League, as well as other international competitions. Erik Sowinski lives and trains in Iowa City, which is really cool to have an elite runner here calling Iowa City their base camp. And so I had the chance to sit down and talk to him in person, which was a blast. I want to warn you, there are going to be a few technical difficulties with the camera. The audio worked fine, but it's the camera that malfunctioned a little bit. So there will be a couple times where the video will cut out, and there was a time where the lights automatically turned off because they were on the energy saver mode. In this interview, we discuss how in high school he was relatively unknown. He did not receive many offers from D1 schools, and he actually had been considering Division III running. We also discuss how even though he finished second at the 2012 NCAA 800 meter championship, he did not have any pro contracts coming out of college and ended up shocking the nation at the Millrose Games 600 meter, where he took down Dwayne Solomon and Nick Simmons and set the American record as an unsponsored athlete. And then we also discuss what's he up to now. We discuss the differences between what it's like to race versus what it's like to pace, both physically, mentally, as well as financially. So he gives an inside look to how pacing differs from racing. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this interview with Erik Sowinski. Subscribe if you enjoyed the interview and want to see more. I'll also have some other training videos coming your way. So be sure to like this video and follow along for more. Thank you, and roll the clip. So Erik, thanks so much for joining me today. Let's just start out by talking about what you've been up to lately. You raced at the U.S. Championships, finished 7th, 16th U.S. Championship Finals. Obviously, you didn't make the team, but you were very close and right there with 200 meters to go. So what does this mean to you and make you think about for the future of your career? I would imagine that that would provide a lot of confidence, even though you were the oldest in the field, or most experienced, oldest. But you're still competitive, very competitive in American middle distance running. So, and a threat to, I guess, world competition. So.
Yeah, it was exciting. I ran well in New York a couple weeks prior to that. Ran 1:45.5. And was third in that race. I beat Clayton, I beat Isaiah Jewett, and unfortunately got COVID for the first time right after that. So I tested positive like a week out from the U.S. prelim. I was like, of course, what timing? But yeah, it was tough. Like that U.S. championship was probably one of the toughest things I've had to do. Like I was just like, I didn't have super bad symptoms. I was just like really fatigued and just like getting to the line on the first day I knew was going to be the hardest thing. And yeah, so that was tough. But I muscled through, got through the rounds each day. So to make the final was exciting. I really thought I had a good chance to make the team. Obviously, things didn't line up, but I gave myself a chance, with 120, 150 meters to go, and just didn't have it on that day. But yeah, I mean, to be competitive with those guys still, after, a decade plus of this is a big confidence boost. And yeah, I mean, I know I've still got it, so.
Yeah. And you ran some great indoor races too in February and March, and seemed to be set up very well leading into the outdoor season. And then, of course, like you said, you got COVID. So, I mean, that must have been so disappointing. But how do you feel like it impacted your races in Eugene?
Like my setup in the beginning of the year, or
just the COVID.
Oh.
That week.
It was hard. I told some people, like, I think that's the proudest that I've been of myself in my entire professional career. Like, 2 days before the prelim, like, I didn't know if I was going to make it to the line. Like, I was sleeping like 18 hours a day. Like, I was just exhausted. Yeah, I mean, it was the first time I had it, so I had no idea what to expect. And, like, yeah, it was just like the fatigue and like a little bit of respiratory stuff that I think, just kind of knocked me off of my A game just a little bit. So, I mean, it was disappointing, obviously, for it to happen at that point for the first time, and especially like this late in my career, right before USA's, was kind of a bummer, but like I was proud of myself to get through the rounds and make the final, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's still really impressive to finish that high after getting COVID.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think a lot of, like, sleeping 18 hours a day, I think a lot of people probably would have just scratched at that point. But the crowd at the U.S. Championships was pretty abysmal, and on any given day of the four-day meet, the highest attendance was about 3,600 out of 13,000 capacity. So, why do you think this was, and how disappointing was it to not have a sold-out crowd like anticipated?
I was joking with some people. I said if they would have had it at Drake, this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
It's tough, I mean, Eugene's a really expensive place to get to.
Yeah.
I mean, my flight alone to and from Eugene was like $1,300. So I mean, and I can't imagine, people trying to bring families out there, especially if they have to fly in a hotel. And I mean, I was reading some tweets about like even some people that competed in like the U20s, like for a mom, an athlete, and one of their grandparents to get out there with all the travel and everything was like $5,000. I mean, there's not a lot of people that can do that or do that often. So I think that, it's tough. Like, Eugene is an awesome place and super historic, but especially with how travel is right now, like, it's super expensive to get to. So I think that probably played a lot into it. People probably deciding, hey, like, do I go to USA's, do I go to Worlds?
Right.
So yeah, it's tough. I like competing in Eugene, but obviously the more people in the crowd makes it even more exciting when you're racing. So it was a little bit disappointing.
I think they should have had it at Drake. I mean, more centrally located, more hotels, probably a few more flights. Too. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I ran at the state meet at Drake a couple of weeks ago, and it was sold out, and that's a high school meet.
I know.
So
even Drake relays this year, I mean, it was super rainy and whatnot, but I mean, they had well over 5,000-6,000 fans, and it was 55 degrees in pouring rain.
And I saw a tweet that kind of went viral just this last week of someone who bought bus tickets to go to the World Championships. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that.
72 hours to get there. Like, I don't know if having Worlds in Eugene is probably the best idea, but I mean, it's cool that they're hosting, and I'm excited to watch. But so yes, you've run 16 U.S. Championship finals, 200 sub 150 800. So I mean, the question that most people have is just how do you stay so consistent and have that longevity?
I think one big thing is just being here in Iowa City, somewhere I'm comfortable with. I mean, I've been with Coach Woody now since 2008, and know what to expect day in and day out. He knows me really well, so I think that that's been one of the biggest things that I'm super comfortable with training every single day, and confident in everything that we do. Just being consistent with things. I mean, getting to practice every day, taking care of the little things outside of practice, nutrition, sleeping. I have the same routine I do every single night before I go to bed for 10 minutes. I think that, that's just been huge. I mean, I've never missed more than like 2 days of running in a row from any sort of injury. And I mean, that's definitely a little bit of luck there, but
Yeah.
I do think that, just like the little things that I take care of day in and day out has really contributed to, not just me being healthy, but knowing my body really well and knowing like, hey, when I can push hard and when I kind of have to, adjust back a little bit just to make sure things are right. So.
Let's go back to the beginning. You're from Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Yep.
Am I saying that right?
Yep.
And it sounded like you had quite the basketball career. You broke your leg junior year.
Yeah.
But then you ran 159.
Yep.
And then senior year split 152 in a relay.
Yep.
And won the Wisconsin State 800 in what sounded like a fairly tactical race in 154. So I guess take us through your high school training and racing progression.
So I was a big soccer player growing up. My freshman year, I didn't run at all. I played soccer and I played basketball. And then my sophomore year of high school, I was like this 5'2", 90-pound kid, and had played really well my freshman year. Like I scored over 20 goals in the freshman team. And, thought I was going to make varsity as a sophomore, and they wanted to put me on the freshman sophomore team again as a sophomore. And I was like, man, I don't know about that. So I quit playing soccer. I had some friends on the cross country team, so I went out for cross country. And I just remember my first 5K, I had done like 2 weeks of training and ran like 25 minutes. I was like, man, like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this.
Yeah.
And trained well throughout that year. Ended up running, I think, under 17:30 as a sophomore. So I mean, like, really improved. Cross country wasn't my best event by any means. I think I ran 16:20 something for 5K, which was respectable, but not like great by any means. But on the track is just kind of where I found my niche. I was on the 4x4, ran some 400s, ran some 800s. Just gradually improved every year. It's funny, I was third in my conference indoors my senior year, then ended up winning conference outdoors in the 400 and the 800. And then, I was fortunate to win the state championship. And so it's just kind of a constant progression. We didn't train, do anything crazy. I was maybe running, 25, 30 miles a week with 2 or 3 track workouts. But, I've always been super fortunate to be pretty fast in general. So just being able to, I was taking out races, 52, 53 in high school and just, making guys beat me that way. So I think that type of training really just helped me not just run well in high school, but transition well into, collegiate racing as well.
And let's talk about that. You ended up, you decided, it sounded like you decided on the University of Iowa pretty late. So what was your college search and recruitment story like, and what initially attracted you to the University of Iowa, and what other schools were you considering?
So up until probably April or May of my senior year, I was set on running D3. I knew I wanted to keep running, and I knew that I still had some in the tank. But I'd only run, I think I ran 156 at conference, which isn't going to get you a lot of D1 looks even back then. So I was looking at some D3 Wisconsin schools, Wisconsin Lacrosse, Stevens Point, Oshkosh were probably the 3 of them. I went on some visits there, and then after winning conference my senior year in the 400 and the 800, there was a guy I went to high school with, Matt Eschy, who went to Iowa. He was 5 years older than me, went to Iowa, and was a volunteer assistant coach here at Iowa at the time. So he kind of, told Coach Woody to, take a look at me, and then I ended up coming out here. I think it was a week or 2 before the state championships. Went on a visit, but no offer or anything. It was just a walk-on spot potentially. Then after winning the state championship, Iowa ended offering me a 10% scholarship, which is cool. And then I was also considering Wisconsin. I had a lot of high school friends that were going to go to Wisconsin. I was going to room with my best friend from high school, still my best friend now. And they wanted me to try out for a walk-on spot, which I was confident in my abilities, so I was going to be able to do that. But they had a really, really good 800 squad back then. So I submitted all of my paperwork, my roommate stuff, everything to go to Wisconsin. So I was set on that. And then, I don't know, we go on a family vacation every year, or we did back then, just kind of up northern Wisconsin, and just sat down with my mom and my grandpa who were here on the visit, and they just had a really good feeling about Iowa, about Coach Woody. We all loved the campus, loved the area, and just made a flip decision, decided to to change to Iowa, and yeah, the rest is history. So it was, I think, sometime in July, and school was going to start in August, so it was like a month or a little bit less that I decided, but I mean, it was the best decision I could have made.
Yeah,
so
really a last minute decision.
Yeah.
But who knows what would have happened if you had gone to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But from digging deep into your TFERs, your 800 time seemed to pretty much improve every single year at Iowa. Freshman year looks like it was probably a transition year, and then sophomore, junior years you were in the 148 to 150 range pretty consistently, and then senior year at the NCAA championships you finished second, running 145.9. So what kind of training and workouts led to this? And I mean, going into your freshman year of college, did you ever expect to be second in the country at nationals?
No, not at all. I tell this a lot, but I didn't lift a single weight in high school. Like, I was a 5'2", 90-pound kid. I played basketball. Like, that was a sophomore. I was small, grew a bunch, but even during basketball season, like, I wasn't lifting or anything. My basketball coach didn't like me running, so I would, like, after practice, hide in the locker room until he would leave, and then I would go for a run because he didn't like me training too much during basketball season. But yeah, I think like I didn't lift at all in high school. So the first, probably 2 or 3 months here, I was lifting with a broomstick, like just trying to get these movements out. So I'm watching all these guys who were, football players in high school and all this stuff, and just like lifting crazy weight, doing all these things I'd never seen. And so that was a big thing for me, was just, transitioning into the weight training. I think that's really helped me. And I think it's even one of my strengths now, probably compared to a lot of 800 guys, especially here in the U.S. And yeah, we just kind of, with Coach Woody, just gradually built everything every year. Like, we didn't do anything like too out of the box, but just like gradually transition my mileage and these longer workouts, which is probably still like one of the weaker aspects of my training and my abilities, but something that I've definitely improved upon. And then we just kind of tackle speed all the time. I think that guys always hate to say that they're doing speed work. I don't know why. Like, you see all these post-race interviews and guys are like, well, I haven't done any speed work yet. I'm like, man, starting in October once a week, like, we're hammering speed work on the track. And I think that for me, like, it's big to, focus on those strengths, and my speed is one of those. So, we do a lot of speed work throughout the entire year, and I think that just really helps me be comfortable in races, no matter, how fast it's going to go out.
So after you've lived in Iowa City now for a while, so I guess if you had to choose one state, then Iowa versus Wisconsin, I guess, which do you like better?
I don't know, that's hard. Like being born in Wisconsin, growing up in Wisconsin, like, I don't know, like Wisconsin, my parents still live there, but I feel like I have grown so much in Iowa City, like, growing from a kid who had lived with his parents for the first 18 years of his life, like living on his own for the first time, like bought a house here. I think that, so, I've grown so much in Iowa City that, I like to think of myself as an adopted Iowan. So, I love it here. And, I think that was probably the best decision I made, was to be here and, stay here throughout the entirety of my career.
So what made you stay here in Iowa City and set it up as your base camp? I guess, obviously, you're with Joey Woody still, but did you ever consider moving out somewhere else, to maybe at altitude or out west?
So I wasn't going to keep running, first off, after college. Like, I was going to go to med school was the plan, and then after NCAAs, Coach Woody kind of convinced me, like, hey, we think we should give this another year and see what happens. So there wasn't really any offers on the table from anyone. I emailed all of the agents on USATF's list and didn't get a response from any of them, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But I kind of came out of nowhere in NCAAs. Like, I hadn't done anything super special before then. So, Coach, having been on the circuit for a long time himself, like, knew a lot of people and connected me with guy who's still my agent now, a decade later. And I just felt comfortable here knowing that, Coach Woody had been through the same kind of thing. Like, he had a pretty solid college career and, had a 10, 12-year long professional career. Like, kind of, he'd stayed a lot of that in Cedar Falls. So I knew that it was doable. I knew that if I was going to be able to do that, it would be with him. So I think that was the biggest thing for me, was just, being somewhere that I'm going to be comfortable, because if you're not comfortable in your environment, like training and everything's probably not going to go super well. So yeah, I mean, after a year or two, like could have gone out to like OTC or a couple of these groups, but I don't really want to move all the way out to Oregon.
Yeah.
I liked being here and everything was going super well, and yeah, so I'm probably about it.
So, where are your favorite places to run and train here in Iowa City?
I do a lot of runs from my house just because it's super easy. So I mean, there's a couple of like country roads on the west side, like out past Rorit. Like I'll do a lot of stuff out that way. I like to run Hickory Hill every once in a while. Terry Trueblood, I can run from my house and do a couple loops around there that are like 7 or 10 miles. Then during the fall, when I do some of my longer like fartleks and tempo stuff, like I like to go out to like Lake McBride and that kind of stuff to just kind of get on a little bit softer of a surface. So
I see.
yeah. How about you?
Well, I live on the east side.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, there's some gravel roads out that way. One in particular, kind of on the northeast side, known as Seven Sisters.
Oh yeah.
Is a classic for when you want hills and
I've actually
tempo.
never run that.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you'll have to give it a shot sometime. It kind of sucks, but especially in the summer with the red-winged blackbirds. But yeah, let's move on to your pro career. Coming out of college, finishing in second at the NCAAs, like you said, you didn't have a pro deal, but your big breakthrough seemed to come at the Millrose Games, indoor 600 meter. You were running against Dwayne Solomon and Nick Simmons, and I don't think anybody probably had you on the radar. But you also, and not only that, but you also set the American record that day. So what was it like to come into this race with no expectations, but leave with the American record of 1:15.61, which is only 0.4 of a second off of the world record at the time, and then fifth fastest 600 meter of all time?
Yeah, I like to think that that's kind of where my pro career took off. I had run well that indoor season up until then, but I don't think anybody really noticed, especially because, like, I'm this guy out of college that nobody really knew who he was. And so I went over to Europe, did a couple 800s, then went to Moscow and ran a 600. And I ran 1:15.9 there, which I had no idea at the time was only like a tenth or two off the American record, which was pretty cool. So I came back from that, we were training. I remember training really hard that week, had a really long workout on Wednesday. And I checked my phone after the workout, and it was the meet director from Millrose saying that someone had dropped out of the 600, asking if I wanted to race on Saturday.
Oh, wow.
So I talked to Coach Woody, and we were like, we've got nothing to lose. I've got no shoe deal. I've got nothing. So, let's go out there and take a rip at it and see what happens. So I flew out there Friday, the day before the race. It was awesome. I was working at Running Wild, which was downtown here at the time. 5 guys from the store were able to fly out there as well. So it's cool to be able to share that experience with them. And yeah, just stuck on Dwayne the first 500 meters and felt pretty good and was able to outkick him there. So that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I watched the race again just last week, and it was cool to learn that you were wearing the Running Wild singlet. And I think it's a bit sad that it no longer exists. Went out of business, but I believe my older brother got his first pair of running shoes at the store, and I remember that it had the really cool track surface as the floor. But yeah, that was interesting to learn. And then in 2016, you finished third at the Indoor World Championships in the 800. So what was it like to come away with a medal after on the world stage after years of being right there and so close to some of those top runners in the world?
It was awesome. To do it in the U.S. was even more exciting. I had, a family, a lot of friends out there, which, if it was outside of the U.S., probably wouldn't have been able to share that experience with them. So, yeah, it was nice to finally see all of that work really pay off, at a high level. I had been pretty consistent. I'd made, an indoor worlds team before that, made an outdoor worlds team, made it to the semis there, but hadn't really been able to crack through and even just make a final. So, to make a final and, ultimately be able to come out with it, a medal was awesome, and probably one of the best experiences I've had.
And then moving forward, like let's fast forward to today. You spent a few years with both Nike and Brooks. You're now, I guess, a free agent,
Yeah.
but you're supported by Bell Lap Track and Field. So, I guess, why do you believe you are still unsponsored despite, I mean, you've proven that you're still one of the top runners in the country, and we'll get into pacemaking later, but I would think that with all the pacing jobs that it'd be a bit more lucrative for brands since you're running at the front of the pack showing their gear. So, I mean, obviously age probably has
100%.
something to do
Yeah,
with
I think
it.
that's probably 99% of it.
But yeah, is there anything else why you would think that?
I don't know. I haven't spoken to anyone like specifically. I know like part of it is that they would want me to just like pace full time and not race, and I don't know why that is. But I'm super competitive, and like especially being having run 145 low the last couple of years, like knowing that it's right there, like I don't want to give up on the racing just yet, even for a little bit of a shoe contract. So yeah, I guess short answer is I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've done enough. My age probably is a little bit against me there, but like I mean, I race just as much as anyone. Plus, the pacing jobs and have been at the front of a lot of TV cameras the last couple of years. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe something will come through, maybe not. But at the end of the day, I'm still enjoying it. So
yeah. And on your profile on the Bell Lap website, it says 800-meter runner and 4x1. And
I didn't even know that.
you were a two-time world 4x800-meter gold medalist, but you anchored a 4x100-meter relay in Budapest last August. So how did this happen? How did you get the job of anchoring a 4x1? And it wasn't even like the other guys in the 4x1 were
like 9.8.
9.8, yeah.
So I had paced at Prefontaine and then was going over to Europe to do some racing and pacing the end of last year. And the first one was an 800 in Budapest. So I raced the 800 and finished that. I think I got like third or fourth. It was a kind of a slow race. It was a little cool. It was like upper 50s and a little cool. Sprinters don't really like that weather, especially the elite guys. So I finished the race, and there's like, go back to the warm-up area, and like a bunch of guys are like huddled up talking, and I overhear them like talking about scratching this 4x1 or like giving someone the baton. They're just gonna jog it in, and it's like, man, like I could probably do that. So I go over there and I was like, hey, like if you guys actually want someone who's gonna give an effort and can probably take a 4x1 handoff, like I'm willing to do it. And I knew that there was some money if we finished and if we, depending what place we took. So at the end of the day, like a little bit of money never hurts either. I didn't bring my sprint spikes to the track because I didn't even think that, I had no idea this was going to happen. So I borrowed a pair of sprint spikes from a friend that was there. And we decided that me anchoring was probably the best bet because nobody wants to see me come out of blocks, especially in a 4x1. So I don't know. Like I don't know what normal 4x1 steps are. Like I feel like you hear like low 20s, mid 20s for a lot of guys at that level. I think I took like 42 steps to get the baton. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, like it wasn't terrible. I didn't run 100% just knowing that like, hey, I haven't done a full out 100 in a long time, and then just raced the 800, 30 minutes before that. But it's pretty exciting. Not a lot of guys get to say that they got to run a 4x1 with that kind of squad, so it's pretty fun. And I paced a 3K, I think, earlier that year, so like I went from like pacing a 3K to racing a 4x1, so it's a lot of range.
Yeah, probably one of the only 800-meter runners to also have a 4x1 split.
Yeah.
And I guess if you maybe decide to move up in distance after your middle distance career is over and you run a marathon, for example, you'd be only the only marathoner with a 4x1 split. And that kind of reminds me, I had a teammate in high school who he ran the 3200 at districts, and then someone on the shuttle hurdle team got injured, and he filled in for the shuttle hurdle at the state meet. He had some experience with hurdling, obviously, but so he was lining up at Drake for the state shuttle hurdle in short shorts.
That's crazy.
So that's probably a fun story to be able to have.
Very.
But So looking back at your career over the last 10 years or so, what are one or two races that you are most proud of, and what made those so special?
That's tough. Um, One of my favorites was my first World Relays. I was really good friends with Dwayne and Robbie and Kaz at the time, so getting to run with those guys instead of against them. I ran the second leg and just kind of like blew the whole race open. Like I think it gave us like a 3 or 4 second lead after 2 legs. And being on the medal stand, getting a gold medal, and hearing the national anthem for the first time was pretty cool. So that was probably definitely one of them. And then probably Drake this last year, the 200th race under sub 150, and kind of planning that to be able to do it at Drake, a place that I've had a lot of awesome memories, a lot of great races with Mike J on the mic, and a lot of family and friends there as well. I think that was just kind of a culmination of everything that I've done over the past decade, and just kind of seeing it all come together on the same day in a pretty awesome place was probably my favorite one that I've done.
And I guess a more, you don't have to, we can always skip this question, but have you ever been on the starting line and felt that others in the race had an unfair advantage, or if you've suspected any of your competitors of doping?
No, and I think that maybe there have been, but for me, like if you go into something with that mentality, I feel like you're already putting yourself at a disadvantage. So, whether you go to the starting line and you're at the same even level as someone else, like I'll probably never know.
Yeah.
But for me, like I go into the race with the same mentality every single time, is that, hey, I want to put myself in the front half of this race, and at some point during the race, give myself a chance to win. And 9 times out of 10, I'm probably not going to win, but I just go with that same mentality to hey, give myself the best effort every single day, and I just don't really think about that kind of stuff before I step on the line.
And a question that I had, I guess, about tactics, and when I watch the U.S. and international meets, it's kind of amazing how physical some of those 800-meter and 1500-meter races are. So how do you both physically and mentally prepare when you know that there's going to be a lot of jostling for position?
I think that's one of the things that's helped me so much, especially even just making all these U.S. finals, is that I've been in so many different kinds of races, and I've had so much stuff happen to me in these races that, nothing today, like you could throw anything out there, and I've probably experienced it a couple times. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these European races, especially, sometimes there's 12, 14 guys on the line in an 800, and everyone gets to the cut at the same time, and there's a lot of elbows being thrown to get position. So yeah, it's definitely something that I had to adapt to my first couple of years as a pro. Like I wasn't used to that whatsoever, but I think that it's definitely helped me know, like, hey, like it's okay to be physical at the cut, like everyone's going to be doing the same thing. And yeah, it's probably one of my strengths compared to a lot of the 800 guys in the U.S. now, just knowing that, like, hey, like when I get there, that I feel pretty good about being able to put myself in the best position possible there.
And obviously you've run a few 800s in your time and probably gotten boxed in a lot. So how do you stay calm when the pack boxes you in, especially on that second lap when you know that the race is coming to a close pretty soon?
It's tough, especially because you never know exactly what's going to happen when you get boxed in. You see a lot of guys, I think, that, make these, like, huge moves out into, like, lane 2 or 3. Like, they'll slow down and move out. And I kind of, like, just wait. At some point during the race, generally, like, the rail will always open up, especially, like, after that last 100 to 120 meters. Like, the guy in the lead's usually dying a little bit and starts to move out. So for me, it's just kind of been staying calm and knowing that, likely that there will be an opening on the inside at some point. But also knowing, like, how fast the race is at that point. Like, if it's a super slow race, then maybe I have to do something a little earlier and slow down to get out. But if it's a fast race and I'm boxed in, like, generally that's going to spread itself out. That there will be an opportunity for you to make a move.
And I guess you don't need to call anyone out specifically, but are there any competitors that that have, heading into a race, who have a bit of a reputation for being a bit more physical than others?
He was a good friend of mine, Guy Learmonth, he's from the UK, one of my best friends on the circuit. But man, like that guy, I feel like every single race is like, jostling with someone, or like a couple times during the year, someone will go down in a little bit of a fight with him. But he's probably and he's a big guy too. Like he's a big 800-meter runner. So I give him some crap every once in a while when I see that happen. But yeah, he's probably the one that I can think of off the top of my head that is like, it's going to be physical if you're there with him.
Let's I guess another question about tactics for you. What type of 800-meter race tactic favors you the most?
I think a race that goes out really fast, but that I don't have to be the first guy. So I mean, the years and I think that's when I had some of my best races was 2013 to 2016, when you had Dwayne that was taking out a lot of races, and then Boris was really, really good. Boris Berrien was really good for a couple of years. Every time those guys took a race out, it was going to be probably between 49.5 and 51 flat, and I knew that I wasn't going to have to be the guy to do that. I think that's where I'm the most comfortable, because those paces are still really comfortable to me, but not having to be the one that everyone is chasing always makes it a little bit easier. So yeah, a race that goes out hard, but I'm not the guy that everyone's chasing down is always good for me.
So let's talk about pacing. And over the last several years, you've developed a reputation as being one of the best pacers in the business. And when did you first get asked to serve as a pacer?
Last year I raced an 800 in New York in May, and it was like 2 or 3 days before this race. I know a lot of the meet directors really well, but one of them that I know really well does the Diamond Leagues for all of the meets in the UK, and he also does Doha. And he was trying to find a pacemaker for the 1500 in Gateshead in the UK. And so he asked my agent if I would do it, and it's like, why not? Like, I don't have anything else to do. So I raced in New York and then flew out the next morning, which was the same day as the race. So I landed, I got to Gateshead, I don't know, it was like 10 or 11 in the morning, and the race was at like 5 p.m. So like I took a quick nap and, did a pretty good job, and then got asked to fly straight from there to Doha to pace the 1500 there as well, and did a good job there. And kind of after that, like, I was getting too many more requests for pacing than I could handle. And I think it helps a lot of those guys, like if you have someone who can run, especially these fast races, like can run, 151, 152 pretty comfortably, it just makes that easier for those guys. And I think that, there's probably not a lot of guys who aren't, elite 800-meter runners in general that can do that. So I think that that's kind of helped me out in getting a lot of those jobs.
How did your legs feel after that long trip? Because, I mean, it's tough enough just going for a run after sitting on an airplane for 6-7 hours, but to pace an 800 and then go to Doha to pace another race, I would imagine your legs would be feeling really bad after that.
Yeah, a little bit. I think having done this so much that I kind of know what I need to do to feel at least decent on race day. I mean, I've done some crazy things in my career with racing. I think it was 2017, I ran like 7 800s in 16 days, and that included a flight from overseas to Europe. And then I also did, I would never do this again, I'm trying to remember what year it was. I want to say it was 2014. I raced a 600 in Amsterdam, and then that was like 8 or 9 p.m. and got on a plane the next morning to Italy, had 2 flights, got there like 4 hours before the race, raced an 800, took a day off, and then ran another 800. So like a 6 and 8 and another 8 all over a 4-day span. So having done that kind of stuff, like, not the smartest to do all the time, but every once in a while, you can do something like that. I think that just having had those experiences just makes like the travel a little bit easier for me.
Yeah. And what's the process to become a pacer, and do you have to do any marketing yourself to get pacing jobs? I mean, you said that you have good connections with the Diamond League now, but how do meet officials usually find athletes to pace?
I think a lot of times it goes through like the athletes' agents, and they kind of connect them that way. I think that especially for the meet directors, like they want obviously someone who's going to be consistent and someone that's done it. And I think that the more that they're familiar with an athlete, that probably helps. So It's not like they're just going to pick a random guy out of a hat to go pace a race. I think it's someone that they know personally, and that has been able to do it consistently. I think that's probably the biggest thing is showing like day in day out, whether it's a race or whether it's a pacing job, that you can be consistent in no matter the conditions, no matter what time of year, that you can get the job done.
Recently, I think it was last indoor season, you paced Jakob Ingebrigtsen for the world record indoor 1500 meter. What was that experience like?
It was awesome. Jakob's an awesome guy, and to be asked to do that was pretty cool. So yeah, I got there and they wanted, I think it was like 28.2s the whole way. So I think it was like 221 for a K, and it ended up being like 220.9 or something. So it was good. But he's a crazy athlete. I mean, he told me that day, he was like, just get to 1,000 meters and get out of the way. Like, I feel good. So I knew that if I could just get him through comfortably doing that, like running pretty even splits, that he'd have a good chance to break the world record. So just to be a part of world record is always a pretty cool thing.
When you pace, do you feel more pressure compared to racing for yourself? Because there are several other guys behind you that are depending on you to set a good pace, be consistent, and if you say go out too hard or too slow and the split isn't what they want, then their race is thrown off a bit.
Yeah, I still get nervous before every race, but I'm more nervous to pace. Just like you said, like knowing that every other guy in the race, like their race and how it's going to end up is reliant on you doing your job. Whereas if I go run a race and it doesn't go well, like that's my bad. Like that's only on me, as opposed to like messing up, 10 or 15 other guys. So just getting super focused on those days and just trying to do the best I can to help them out. But yeah, I definitely get more nervous doing that than just going out and racing at 800.
And there are a lot of international races, especially in the Diamond League sometimes, where the pace setter will go out at the goal pace, but the field doesn't go with them. And so if the pace is agreed upon ahead of time, why does the field change their mind to go slower once the race starts?
I have no idea, especially because generally, as far as I know, at these Diamond League meets, like they'll do a technical meeting with all the coaches and agents and stuff beforehand, and that's where the pace gets decided. So generally it's an athlete that is asked for that pace. I don't usually know who that is, but I just know how fast they want me to run. So I have no idea why, maybe guys aren't feeling good that day or the conditions aren't ideal. But yeah, so like just have to, adjust. And for me, if they ask for 153 and no one's near me, like it doesn't do me any good to just keep running way out ahead of them. So I just kind of try to adjust my pace as I can, and at least kind of try and help them a little bit throughout the race. But to answer your question, I have no idea why a pace gets asked for and nobody goes with it sometimes.
So if you are asked to go out in 153, and you go out slower, are there bonuses for when you get paid for pacing, are there bonuses for hitting the split right on, or is it just a flat rate?
Generally, it's a flat rate. Some of them will give me a bonus, but it's more for doing a good job. It's not super reliant, especially because, it can be so variable how these races go. Obviously, if it's like a race that's going fast and guys are going with it, then they want you to be at that time. But at the same point, like they know that, if they ask for, 50 flat and an 800 and guys are going 54 pace, that it doesn't do me any good to just be way out in front of them. Yeah. So, the meet directors know what they're doing and they take care of me.
So does compensation, how does the compensation for pacing compare to racing?
I would say me pacing now, I still make less than when I was racing with a contract.
Yeah.
But I mean, it helps me that I don't have to do a job outside of this, and I can focus on running, and I can pay for myself to go to some of these good races and get some good races in myself. I'm not rolling in the dough by any means, but at the end of the day, I just love what I do, and so yeah. I mean, I'm not making a ton of money, but I can get by and I can still be competitive and be able to do the things I want to do.
And when you are pacing, have you ever felt really good and decided just I'm not going to drop out. I'm going to see how fast I run today.
No, I don't think I would do it in a 1500 in general. Like 1500 is a little bit out of my comfort zone. I mean, I've run, I don't know, 344 or something. I could maybe run if we trained and focused a little more on that, like maybe 339, 340, but I wouldn't be competitive with some of these guys in these races. Some of the 800s I've thought about, especially when, they're asking for 50 flat and I get out hard and there's nobody there, but most of those times I was also pacing the 1500 afterwards, so I knew that if I was going to finish the 800, it probably wouldn't be a good idea. I also don't want to keep going and then just blow up and get blown by these guys, and that would look pretty bad too. Yeah. So there's nothing to say that I can't do it, but I would have to be feeling really good and really confident that I would win the race. Otherwise, there's no way I would even think about doing it.
Yeah. Moving on to some, I guess, the closing questions, rapid fire. You can take as long or as short as you want to explain your answer. But if you were in charge of USATF or IAAF, what changes would you propose to improve track and field, both in the U.S. and around the world?
Give athletes more freedom as far as sponsorships and advertisements on their jerseys. I think that people get so limited, especially so like as the rule stands now, like generally like the left logo is whoever manufactures that piece of clothing. So like that's why you see all the Nike singlets, like there's a Nike logo and there's nothing on the right hand side. You can have something on the right hand side, but it has to either be like a club or you can have one other advertisement. But a lot of these shoe companies like only want their logo on the front of your jersey. So I think that more freedom as far as that goes, I think could open up a lot more money being put into the sport for athletes. Because if a company, can't have their logo on your jersey, like they're probably not going to put money into you, right? So they need some return on their investment. So that is the one thing that I would love to see, especially when you see how popular like Formula One is getting now, and like NASCAR. I mean, it's not huge, but it's big, and you see all of these advertisements these guys have, and that would just give athletes a lot more freedom financially to be able to explore other options. So that would probably be the biggest thing I could think of. As far as USATF, I don't know. I feel like there's got to be a better way to distribute money to the athletes, right? I think that especially now, if you look like the way USATF distributes money is they do a tiered system. So there's like, I think there's used to be 3 tiers, now there's 2 tiers to get money from them. But unless you're like ranked top 10 in the world or you're like a world medalist, you're not going to get money from USATF. When at the end of the day, like the people that need the money are not those guys. You know what I mean? Yeah. Nothing against them, but like a Grant Holloway, does he need 10 grand from USATF? Probably not. But you look at a couple of the guys we've got here at Iowa. Aaron Mallett's run 13-1, Jamal Britt's run 13-0, and those guys are getting no money from USA Track and Field. So I think that I don't know what the answer is, but I think there's got to be a better way to distribute that revenue to the athletes that would like make a bigger difference in their lives. Being able to, whether it's cut back on a part-time job or get to some other competitions. I think that would be something that I would like to see done. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how that money gets funneled or whatnot, but if you're interested, take a look at the tier system. You can. It's tough. So I mean, I was a tiered athlete for 2013 to 2019. 2019 was the first outdoor final I missed. So I got hurt like 2 weeks before USA's, and I ended up being the first guy to miss the final. And so I lost my tier funding. I lost my contract in that year, and then COVID hit. So when COVID hit, they took all of the tiered funding, and it was all reliant on the year before. So the year I got hurt. So I haven't been tiered since 2019 because of that. So I've gotten no money from USA Track and Field since 2019.
Even for finishing 7th?
So there's still prize money, sure.
Okay.
But like as far as like they do like just funding for athletes in general.
Yeah.
So I haven't gotten any of that.
Wow.
Which I mean, it's huge. I mean, even if it's, I don't know, $5,000-$6,000, like that's just is money that I don't have to use to, massage, chiropractic, travel to these meets. Like it's big for athletes that don't have outside funds coming in, and I think that they don't realize the impact that it can have for someone. So that's something I'd like to see done. I don't, like I said, I don't know what the answer is, but I think that the money could be used in better ways.
You mentioned the thing about advertising, and you see it in cycling,
yeah,
and where their uniforms are basically just covered in ads, and that seems like maybe running needs to move in that direction. Yeah, but I think that would definitely help the sport. Like you mentioned traveling, and you've traveled a lot over the years. So how are those frequent flyer miles coming?
I have a lot of miles. I think I do most of my flying. I try to fly in United or partners as much as I can. I don't know the exact number, but I definitely have over like 750,000 miles on United. I haven't touched any of them since I started. So I've just been saving them, and when I retire, I'm gonna take one big trip or take a couple trips and just not have to worry about that. So that'll be nice to not have that come out of pocket. Plus another thing is like some of the athletes, like I've talked to athletes that like don't have like frequent flyer programs, and the miles just don't go anywhere. And I was trying to tell them like, hey, like this is super valuable even for athletes that, like you said, like don't have contracts, don't have travel funding. I mean, you take a couple trips overseas and that could pay for your flight to a U.S. championship. So I think it's a tool that a lot of people don't utilize to the extent, but for me it's been awesome. I think it'll pay me some dividends in the future.
Yeah, definitely. And so this next question, it's a bit of a longer one.
Yeah.
And you played basketball in high school. So for this hypothetical scenario, you're shooting free throws.
Okay.
And so for every free throw you make, you get $1,000. But every free throw you miss, you must eat a McDonald's sausage egg McMuffin, which has about 500 calories. Before you shoot your free throws, you have to set a number of free throws that you'll attempt, and then you'll have to follow through and shoot that number of free throws. So how many free throws will you take? How confident in your free throw shooting ability are you?
Let's see. I'd probably take like 12. So I'm just trying to think. So when I played basketball in high school, I probably shot like 75% from the line. So if we shoot 12, that means I'll miss 3 or 4 of them. I could probably eat three of those. I don't know that I could physically eat any more than that. So, I think 12 would be the number.
Yeah, that's a question that one of my friends pitched to me that I should start asking all the guests on the podcast. So back to running. After your competitive racing career on the track is finished, do you think you'd want to move over to the roads and move up in distance to maybe run a half or full marathon?
Right now, I would say no. I'm really excited to play some basketball at the YMCA when I'm done. But I think I would go back to running at some point, but I think like maybe like the first year or two when I'm done, like I just want to play some sports that I haven't played in a long time, just because I don't want to get hurt, and I know that running is my job. So I wouldn't mind like exploring like the trails, like longer stuff on the trails. I kind of enjoy doing that, but like going out and running 26 miles on the roads just right now for me that just doesn't sound appealing. Yeah. But maybe I'll change my mind.
If you weren't running, what career path would you want to follow? I know you mentioned that you were going to med school, so is that what you'd want to do? And I guess what specific field in medicine were you interested in?
So I was interested in cardiology. My mom is a pediatric nurse in cardiology, so that was something I was interested in. Took a couple classes here that I really liked. I don't think that's in the cards anymore. I don't really want to be starting a new career at the age of like 40 plus. Yeah. I would like to do something in sports for sure. I don't know exactly what that is, but I think that I've made a lot of awesome friends through sports. I've got to go to a lot of cool places that, in some sense, I'd like to be able to help athletes and give back a bit, whether that's, I don't know, in a sports marketing position or a coaching position or something completely different. But yeah, I think I'd like to do something in sports, whether it's track and field or not.
And you are a level 1 USATF certified coach.
I am.
And served as an assistant coach for a bit at Davenport Central, I think it was. Assumption.
Yeah.
So would you want to come back and maybe coach some high school in Iowa?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to be able to coach in some facet. I don't know College coaching, maybe not right away. Like just seeing Coach Woody now and how much he travels. He's gone every weekend, and I'm kind of ready just for a little bit of a break from that year round. But yeah, I'd love to coach, whether it's high school or something in general. But yeah, I love my time at Assumption just helping out those athletes, and it definitely, I think that not just getting back to the sport, but like it helped me learn a lot about myself as an athlete and what I can also kind of improve on. So I think that coaching is something I like to do, and I'd like to do in the future.
You ran against Nick Simmons and Dwayne Solomon, and then now and Robbie Andrews, and then now it's kind of like the next generation. So Isaiah Jewett. I guess Clayton Murphy is
kind of
still
between,
a little, yeah. But what's it been like to, I guess, be there and watch the sport, watch middle distance running kind of change and adapt over the last 10 years?
It's been awesome. I mean, just to be a part of that, and a lot of those guys that you mentioned are really good friends to me. So being able to see them succeed in their careers too has been pretty special. But I mean, you go back and you look at Nick and Dwayne ran really well in 2012, 2013. Making the Olympic final, and then it kind of dropped off a bit. I think that now seeing like a resurgence of all these young athletes that are super competitive on the international level, and just having seen it from the outside and knowing the work that it takes to do that and be competitive at that level, like I think it's awesome to call those guys friends and just being able to see them succeed too.
And last question, this is the one I ask everyone on the channel, so it's probably the most important question of the day. What's your favorite item from Taco Bell?
Ooh, I have two, and I don't know that I can narrow it down. So I really like Crunchwrap Supremes, and I also like the 5-layer burritos.
Oh, both very good
With
answers.
With a Baja Blast.
Oh, the cherry on top. Best answer so far. I mean, some people, it's kind of funny. I ask everyone, and like, I'd say, I think I've interviewed about 12 people, 15 people, and only maybe 4 or 5 have actually been to Taco Bell. So,
really?
So not very many people have gone to Taco Bell. So it's always nice when people have a good answer.
Okay.
So Erik, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm glad we got the chance to sit down, meet, chat.
Same.
I guess anything you want to plug? Any big plans on the horizon for you?
No, just hopefully some racing and pacing here throughout August and September, and if anyone wants me to put their logo on my chest,
yeah,
I'm open ears. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and best of luck moving forward.
Thank you.